Welcome back. Thank you again for joining us today. We will be moving into our next discussion focused on the economic roles of women during and after conflicts. I am pleased to introduce Ambassador Milan Verveer to provide opening remarks. Ambassador Verveer is director of Georgetown's Institute for Women, Peace, and Security, and was the first U.S. Ambassador at Large for Global Women's Issues. She's also the co-founder of Vital Voices. Ambassador, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. It's always a great personal pleasure for me to be back here at the Atlantic Council, which does so much good work. And of course, it's good for me always to be with my Vital Voices family, Elise and the others. As you heard, I was one of the co-founders, and Elise and I were the first to open the door some 24 years ago. So how quickly time goes. This International Women's Day comes at a profoundly difficult time in the world. War and conflict seem to be the new normal, and we think about the women and girls who are disproportionately impacted by wars ranging from Ukraine and Israel, Gaza, to Sudan, Myanmar, and so many other places. It's appropriate that this segment in today's discussion focuses on women's economic opportunity, which is critical for sustainable peace, security, and prosperity. A panel will follow, focusing on the role of women in Ukraine, Sudan, and on innovation. 2 decades ago, the United Nations Security Council adopted a resolution known by its number 1325 that recognized the important role that women have in peace and security. It's been strengthened by 9 additional resolutions by the Security Council to ensure that the goals are fulfilled, and we are still off the mark in full implementation. One of the key pillars of the Women, Peace, and Security framework calls for women's meaningful participation in post-conflict relief, recovery, and reconstruction. And I will talk about this in the context of Ukraine today. Including women in rebuilding is not only the right thing to do, but it is also a strategic investment for Ukraine's democratic and economic future. Ukraine recovery conferences have been taking place to encourage private investment in the regions of Ukraine most affected by the Russian assault, to address the post-war reconstruction costs, and to build forward, to lay the groundwork for a new social contract to ensure an inclusive, sustainable recovery for all Ukrainians. It also means ensuring that women in civil society who've been indispensable as the first responders in the war are central to the planning and to oversight of funds in the reconstruction efforts. Women also represent the majority of the highly educated and skilled workforce in Ukraine. They are well positioned to help strengthen anti-corruption measures, to modernize the energy sector and drive Ukraine's reform agenda, all essential components for an effective recovery, and to meet the conditions of Ukraine's ultimate accession to the European Union. The next Ukraine Recovery Conference will take place in Berlin in June, and it is critically important to have women at the table. Recovery will only be realized if women in civil society are fully involved in the rebuilding. The record to date for women's inclusion has not been what it needs to be, so there is work that must be done, and I hope the Atlantic Council will join us in this common cause. Reconstruction should enable women's active participation in Ukraine's recovery and post-war society, in international financial institutions, and private donors should invest in women-owned and women-led businesses, small and medium-sized enterprises in particular. Creating jobs for women and men will be crucial. Moreover, private investments should also focus on rebuilding social infrastructure and the services to strengthen the economic recovery, and physical infrastructure reconstruction needs to be paired with a comprehensive social, human-centric recovery. Reconstruction must be informed by the realities on the ground, and modernization and innovation will be essential. Further, new reporting mechanisms like the digital ecosystem for reconstruction management, known as DREAM, should be supported to allow for transparent, accountable, and equitable use of funds and strengthening any anti-corruption work. So all of this is critical to what is ahead in a very serious way. Evidence shows that better outcomes occur when women serve at all levels of the recovery effort. Moreover, ways to grow the economy can be challenging, but providing for women's economic opportunities can yield significant gains. We know that women spend their incomes in ways that create a multiplier effect by investing in their families, in education, health, nutrition, all of which raise the standard of living. An AID study of several conflict-affected states showed that in some cases, effective post-conflict reconstruction and development interventions created new opportunities for women to improve their livelihoods, to access finance, to join networks. Indeed, post-conflict recovery periods offer a rare window of opportunity to accelerate local development and strengthen women's agency. Because of the shock to the local structures, including gender structures and norms, and because people's determination to rebuild their lives once peace returns. Economic opportunity is an important contributor to post-conflict stability. Investments in entrepreneurship at the micro and especially at the SME levels create income and jobs. However, women entrepreneurs often face serious barriers, such as access to credit, to markets, to training, to technology, to so much that they need to start and run successful enterprises. These must be overcome if women are to unleash their economic potential. Increasing agricultural productivity is also extremely important, particularly where it is a significant sector in the economy. And access to construction jobs is very vital in post-recovery efforts, but women are often discriminated against in this market and often cannot access those good jobs. In Ukraine, recovery is happening as the war goes on. Women are already successfully growing small businesses, identifying market niches, motivated to make a difference with their enterprises. And the Deputy Finance Minister, whom you are going to hear from shortly, told me that today a third of the SMEs in Ukraine are women-run. Women have been undertaking many new roles during the war to address the pressing needs. Many have joined the security sector. Others are serving as diplomatic advocates. They're treating the injured, documenting sexual violence as a war crime, and so much more. They are leading in countless ways. And as the First Lady, Mrs. Zelenska, noted recently, when the war ends, their roles will have grown immeasurably. They will have been transformed by their experience and resilience, and they will help their society to be transformed also. I'm sure you're all acquainted with Rosie the Riveter in the American World War II experience. Many of the men went to war, and the wartime economy provided new, better-paying jobs for women in production plants, riveting airplanes, and producing munitions, and so much more. And when the war ended, some wanted to stay in those new jobs, but many men came home to reclaim their positions. But all the women were not pushed out of those jobs when victory arrived, and many remained in the workplace. And they would ultimately help to transform women's role in the economy in this country. In planning for economic recovery, there's often a tendency to marginalize women's role in the economy. I saw this firsthand when I was at the State Department in discussions on Afghanistan and Iraq, discounting the solid data on women's entrepreneurship and its role in growing economies, frequently not on the table as a way to grow those economies. The lack of economic opportunity caused by war can also bring, as we all know, severe consequences. The displacement brings loss of income. Women desperate to find work are often lured by criminal trafficking networks into believing a good job awaits them, only to find themselves in the nightmare of modern-day slavery. Human trafficking also goes up during conflict and post-conflict, and in places where sexual violence is being used as a tool of war, as it is in Ukraine, prioritizing women and girls' economic investments can help protect them from further exploitation. In the ongoing civil war in the DRC, which has been going on for a long, long time, and sexual violence has been one of the most horrific in the world, the Nobel laureate who runs a hospital there, Dr. Mukwege, once said to me, when he asked the women who are traumatized what they need, he said they always say the same thing. They want a market. They want to be back to normal in the economy. Women constitute a vital source of economic growth that can power post-conflict recovery and sustainable peace. Their meaningful participation in decision-making is crucial. At this International Women's Day Forum, we should remember that gender equality is fundamental to peace, security, and economic opportunity. Our institute at Georgetown University publishes an index on women's peace and security that focuses on their well-being and ranks 170 countries on inclusion, justice, and security. The inescapable conclusion is that the well-being of women and the well-being of nations goes hand in hand. When we liberate the economic potential of women, we elevate the economic performance of communities and countries. This is true for Ukraine, and it is true for all of the nations that find themselves in these circumstances today. So thank you for your attention, and now I want to introduce our next panel. I'd like to invite Kim Donovan back up here. She is the Director of Statecraft Initiative at the Geoeconomic Center here at the Atlantic Council. So you're in for a great discussion. Thank you.